We were just about to chuck in hospital because it really wasn't going very well. And he started running parties at Herbal, and that was where the hospitality brand was born.
I think it felt like we were actually expressing a lot more about ourselves.
Look at most of the kind of cities in the UK, look at what their Friday night is at their biggest club, and a lot of the time it's going to be a drum bass night.
I love how music evolves and grows, and exactly, you know, drum and bass ain't no new thing on the scene. It's been around for a while.
It's like, you know, people talk about this Annie Mac generation, and it is so true. You know, it's kids who listen to that radio show, you know, they download the podcast. It's part of that generation of youngsters that are growing up with this bass heavy music.
You know, like when you look at drum and bass, you know, in 2011 compared to like 2001, you know, it's a global thing. You know, it's on the radio. It's part of like the national consciousness now. And now, you know, if you say drum and bass, like everyone knows what it is.
And I think that hospital fits into that section of what people are listening to these days.
It's like, you know, back in the day how hip hop went from New York to across its country to across the fucking world. I love how drum and bass is doing that.
There's students, there's rude boys, there's skinheads, there's dreads, there's whites, there's blacks, there's tourists, there's everything in between. And that's why I like hospitality. You know, you get a real vibe. There's everyone and anyone in a hospitality event. There's no discrimination. You know, you go to some events and you feel like, do I belong here? Do you know what I mean? And it's not like that hospitality. You can come dressed as you want, act as you want, and everyone is kind of welcome. And that's really, really hard to create that kind of vibe.
To me, the biggest thing that I always liked about hospital and always got from them is a sense of fun. It's just everything they do. It's about positivity and having fun, and I always sort of picked up on little jokey things.
To get goodwill factor, whether you're trying to get people to your event or to buy your record, is probably the hardest thing you can do. It takes the longest amount of time, and I think that's what hospital have achieved. So I think there's a real goodwill factor to them where people want to come to their events, they want to support and they want to represent, and that's a really unique thing for an independent record label, or any record label, to achieve that.
The branding's always been a big part for us as well, because we're obviously graphic designers and we have complete control over the artwork. That's always been a really sort of, what I'd like to think, a sort of strong aspect of Hospitality Brighton. We've always been really sort of meticulous in the way we've branded it, and because we do it ourselves, we don't have to compromise, and it's essentially our own brief in terms of design work.
Exactly, yeah.
We can have some fun with it. And
of course they take their work seriously, but they don't take it too seriously. They're always willing to just sort of play on things a little bit.
And the logo is such a strong, iconic logo now. Before, you know, it was so unknown, but now, you know, as soon as people see the Hospital H and they see the little hospital as well, it's just instantly recognisable.
It's because the label's called Hospital, and that just lends itself to so many amazing like medical puns and like just the most ridiculous things. I've got a big crate of syringes up there from a sleeve that I did for them, and it's all about fun.
I think the key thing for me that I've always loved has been that it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's about good vibes, having fun, like a positive attitude, and in a music scene where, I mean, a lot has changed since we started listening and making to it, but for a long time it had quite a kind of rude boy, kind of street angle to it, and
certain amount of snobbery.
There's a kind of like an inverse snobbery that you get with that stuff. And I think right from the start, like, you know, one of the first things that I saw from Hospital was the Plastic Surgery album cover, which has got like Playmobil hospital set on a mixing desk, and compared to, you know, all of the kind of skulls and like spaceships and stuff that you saw on the other sleeves at the time, yeah, like it was a real breath of fresh air.
It's all about just sort of being a bit silly and positive, and ultimately that's what you want from dance music. You want something for people to go and have a good time and to feel good, and it's not to be all serious and moody, and that's what's made Hospital so successful in drum and bass to me.
And I think that translates into the music and the parties, and you know, just even the people that work there. You know, it's like it's a all-round like feel-good atmosphere about the stuff that they do, and that's always been something that I've kind of been really happy to be identified with.
The New Tone project as a whole is an interesting project because for a long time he didn't have a title. Had most of the music, we had the concept that that it was mostly going to be vocal tracks. And then one day New Tone came up with the title himself. He suggested words and pictures. So once we had the title, we kind of realised, we've got to come up with artwork to go with this as well. And one day my brother came over with a big crate of art supplies because he studied fine art at university and said, I'm not using these anymore, do you want them? So I said, great, I love having more art supplies. And I just went through the whole box, and there are just so many wild colours and interesting things and shapes. I was thinking, what can I do? And I just showed this image to Chris. And Chris was like, actually, I really like that. So we got approval from everyone at the label and from New Tone himself, of course, and I redeveloped it. And that's how we got this cover, which is such a striking image. And this is all stuff, this is all my own art equipment. And Chris came up with the idea of just filtering it through and picking stuff of a specific colour range for the single, which works so well for a title, Shine In. It was actually Matt Riley at Hospital that came up with the suggestion. He was like, is there any way we can sort of embed YouTube players into the image so the website is just like the album cover? So I thought about it and said, yeah, let's do it. And I did it, and actually did it late last year. So when it came to promote it, I'd kind of forgotten about it by then, and suddenly we just had this big bubble of interest emerge on it, and there was a paragraph in The Guardian written about it, which was just like, wow, that's the first time my work's ever been mentioned in the national press. That's so flattering.
Just the way that we do things, and that Chris and Tony and Tom are very clear on doing things properly and doing things right, and not being half-assed, not doing things with no reason or thinking behind them. And that goes for everything from anything that we would write on a press release right through to our events or our podcast or any release. You know, it's not just a kind of random event. It's actually quite thought out, and actually there's a plan with lots of things.
But I don't think the scene has ever been as wide open as it is now. Half of our job, not just me and Tony, but everyone that we work with, is to make the most of that literally every day, and everything that we're doing, whether we're promoting an event or we're getting ready to release a new record, whatever it is, you know, we have to continually respond to that open field of people that might be interested and excited by what we're doing.
You can't just be about selling music, you have to work out how to take your brand, your sound to as big audience as possible, as quickly as possible, and doing a big event is probably one of the easiest ways to do that. It's the way you've got to create a kind of lifestyle. You can't let people just buy music for the sake of music. You have to make people buy into the artist, buy into the brand, buy into what it stands for.
Unlike any other label, they've got the kind of the infrastructure and the know-how to reach the most people with your music. It's one of the great things about releasing with them, is that
you know it's going to go out to a certain audience, and they're going to hear it no matter what.
A huge audience, you know, and like, there's nothing worse than working hard on music and it not reaching people that you want it to reach, you know. But with Hospital, they can take your music a long way.
I guess with Hospital, they're probably, out of all the labels that are out there for drum and bass, they're probably one of the most professional labels, you know what I mean? They've
Definitely.
Got a huge team behind them. It's all encompassing, isn't it?
Definitely.
The podcasts, the artwork, just the media coverage,
the merchandise,
the support they get.
Yeah.
And it has created this accessibility to the sort of younger generation.
Yeah.
I think some of it's to do with giving people what they want and kind of connecting with people. And you know, if you sit there and all you do is you put out a 12, you know, every month, then there's not a lot of people to get hold of. But if you've got the podcast, and you know, if you've got kind of ways for people to kind of feel like they're connected to the music and the label and the artists, then I think you develop an even stronger fan base and an even stronger sense of community as well.
You have to have fun with it, and there's a lot to have fun with as well. You know, there's so many strands to running a label now. You're not just releasing 12 inches and if you dare a CD, you know, you're releasing on loads of different formats. You know, you can play with it so much, and you can play with the whole structure, with the social networking side, with the promotion. You've got to have a lot of fun with it, and that comes through to the people who buy your records, who follow the label. If they sense that actually they're really enjoying themselves and they're imparting that sense of fun to the listener, then they'll come with you. So you build people into the game, you include people in the game, you make it open and accessible, and you welcome new ideas. And we keep that energy rolling.
Hospital itself is a very tight family, of course. And as I was saying about seeing the crowds of people in all of our merchandise at the big events we do, feeling really honoured to be part of that. Again, it's a real honour to be part of the whole team that works and all of the artists and everything.
When John came back from the Brixton gig and he said to me, he said to Chris, he said, look what you've created. He said, look what you've created. All these kids are wearing your logo on their t-shirt and they're turning up to your party with it, you know, and that just kicked in for me and just made me think, you know, like there's something definitely happening.
They are always looking for something different and looking for interesting music and interesting ideas. This one, New Technique EP. Love the title track, but it's not a particularly inspiring title. There's a track on it called Bigfoot, which now there's a good title if you want it. So I decided that I'd make a point of that. So we've got like a normal centre labels. And then for the Bigfoot side, we've got a bloody Sasquatch on it. Ah! And again, it's just having a little joke about what we're doing, not taking it too seriously. This one, it proved really successful because we've done like mugs and t-shirts of the same design as well. We weren't really sure on the design of it at the time because the title track was jungle music and this was obviously much more Toy Town, but it really did well. It's funny because I did this version, it was literally, I took the picture on the side of my own fridge, and we were looking at it, I think it's a bit clean, it's a bit nice, a bit too nice for drum and bass. So I did an alternate version where I kind of messed it up a bit and I got like some bourbon biscuits and put crumbs all over it and a bit of ketchup and stuff, and it looked like the scene of child abuse. And we're like, oh god, we can't have that. So we ended up with a clean version and it worked out. When I heard that we were putting this out, I was kind of struggling with ideas, and the title itself lends to so many visual puns. And I was trying to come up with something like I went down the pick and mix shop and bought a big bag of sweets and was trying to come up with a cover from that, but it was just too heavy. It just didn't work, and I was scratching my head, and my other half really likes to bake. She bakes lots of cakes, and I was just standing in the kitchen when she was making something and I saw these cake decorations and I just thought, perfect, I love the colour of those. And I managed to make the text out of them and it worked so well, and again, it was well received even in the wider design community, which was particularly nice as I'm kind of out of the loop with that. That's again, that comes back to what I was saying about I don't like drum and bass that's influenced by drum and bass. I try not to make my design influenced by design that's going on at the moment, because you do see trends of design that are really current, and like you notice people suddenly all clamouring for the same font. Like there's a typeface called Gotham, which is what Barack Obama used on his presidential campaign. So now that typeface has really become associated with success, so everyone's using it to try and sort of make their product feel like Barack Obama's success. And so you're like, you don't want to do that. You want to be unique.
It's not an easy thing to do. You know, you always have to consider the next thing you're going to do when you're doing something. You know, will this fit in with the next thing, and will this fit in with the last thing? And I guess that just comes from years of trial and error, fucking a few things up. and having some great success with other things. But it's a consistency. That's the key, really, and they have that consistency. I think they understand what they do, they understand what their market is, and understand how they're different to everybody else. When you know what you are, you're in the best position to sell it to other people. So many people try and sell things, whether it's a fucking table, a lamp, a record, a label, whatever, but unless you're sure of really what your kind of tagline is, you can't sell it to anyone else. You know, it's the same thing in life. Love yourself and you can love other people. I think that's kind of what hospital do. They're confident in what they do, they know where they stand, and it's like, if you don't like it, you don't like it, and if you do like it, then wicked, come join the party. And I think that's kind of the ethos behind it. I mean, that's what I get anyway.
I think maybe something that Tony and I have always tried to do is just be very honest, and maybe because of the way that he and I came into drum and bass, which was, you know, from slightly more left field, because we've been involved in the whole jazz scene, and so for a while I think personally I always felt like a bit of an outsider. But so
still do.
Yeah, and I think there were a lot of things early on that I felt within the sort of drum and bass scene that were nothing to do with me, that didn't resonate with me at all.
Long term, I do think about it a lot. I think about what we're doing as a company, and actually I'm sure if you ask other people, like certainly the directors, that we do have regular chats about the future and what we're doing and make sure everyone's really happy here. As an employee, personally, the responsibility is to make hospital records as good as possible, and actually if things are right, that would be wicked for me and it'd be wicked for the company, and really, like, hospital's not here and I work for hospital, it's actually I am a part of hospital records, so if I can succeed in what we're doing, then the company can succeed and vice versa.
And I always felt very strongly that it was absolutely crucial that we, like the two of us and the people that we work with, could not just try and blag our way through things by acting tough and hanging out with the right people and trying to say the right things. We've just got to be who we are. And I'd like to think that's a fairly crucial part in terms of how we try. Like we don't write it down. We don't have a script. And a lot of it's quite chaotic and very messy. But I think generally it's fairly honest.
I find it unbelievable. Edgar, who deals with a lot of the production, so when I finish my artwork, I'll supply it to him, and then he'll get it to the manufacturers. And to me, I kind of think that must be a bit of a frustrating and mundane job to be saying, right, we need to get this many copies pressed of this and we want it finished like this. But he puts so much effort into it, and he clearly enjoys working with the label and doing this stuff, and that's really important. And everyone at hospital loves what they do, and you've got to love what you do to do a good job of it. It is the idea that's important. It's the imagination that's been put into it that is really important with anything, and that's what makes things interesting. I remember hearing once that it's the unique things that stick in people's mind, and that's so true. And that's why labels like Hospital are so successful, is they're being so different to everyone else, and that makes them more memorable.
If you go in there tonight, it's a much friendlier, kind of more relaxed vibe, really, and you can tell that people are there for the music tonight. You know, they're really listening, like they're responding to every drop, and yeah,
it's more than just Screwface as well. It's not just like, you know, crazy bass like making you kind of go mental. It's like it's music for your mind as well as for your feet, you know.
You know, hospitality it's a beast in its own right, and it runs alongside the record label. But you know, hospitality needs hospital, and hospital needs hospitality. It's one and the same thing. So
when people come to hospitality, they are coming to a drum and bass event, but they're also coming to a hospital event, and they're becoming part of the family. So it's not as simple as just other drum and bass rave, you know, of which there are plenty that don't have an identity and they don't have that following, that fan base, because people want to come on this journey with us and they keep coming back. We have to keep delivering something new from all angles, not just the events, but all the associated web activity. And we tie everything in very, very closely and carefully and with a lot of love. That seems to work, and people seem to want to come and support that. That's, in my mind, why it works. You know, if we take the foot off the gas in any one area, then the wheels will fall off.